we have something called a scorecard. And what the scorecard does is it's going to look at thousands of hours of recordings, and the AI agents are going to understand those recordings, break them all down into key moments, good moments and bad, and it's going to pop it out into a nice clean scorecard for us so that we can look at any rep and we can see exactly the moments that they are hitting or missing, how well they're doing on each, and where they need to be coached so that we can jump in and listen to that key moment. So I could have a rep with
Yeah.
10,000 hours and I can go right to the moment that's important.
Welcome back to the Just Build Baby Studio. You're listening to the BuildX podcast, your ultimate guide to creating exceptional homes, innovative living spaces, and staying informed on all aspects of residential building technology. I'm your host, Buzz Artiano. Today, we're excited to have Spencer Havemann remote today. Spencer is an account executive at Siro with 14 years of experience in the industry. Welcome, Spencer.
Thanks, Buzz. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so we met, let's see, 3 weeks ago now?
That's right.
Yeah, ish.
3 weeks or a lifetime, I'm not sure.
Depends on what period you have on that, right?
That's
So
right.
before we get started, I like to talk, I know you and I had a little bit of banter, but I'd like to have people have context of how, what you did before Siro, and I know you've had your own business for a while, so maybe take us back to the Beacon sales days and
Yeah.
and kind of bring us up to speed of where we are today.
Yeah, I love it. I was a lucky guy. I went to Penn State in Pennsylvania, and I got to study energy business and finance, which I thought was going to be a lot around, renewable energy and things like that. I learned how to pollute, which is a good skill to have. But I always had an interest in solar itself. I wanted to learn a lot about it. And the cool thing about Penn State is they've got a killer program, for putting students into jobs, right? Great job fairs. So I'll never forget. I walk into the job fair, and I'm between Exelon and BP, and here's Dave Jenkins with Allied Building Products. And I don't know if you've ever seen The Office when they go to a career fair and they've just got a piece of paper on the table. That was Dave. So you got lines out the door on both sides, and there's Dave with no one talking to him, and I had him written down on a piece of paper, as an interesting company to look at. So what Dave and Allied were doing at the time is they were opening up solar distribution within Allied. And familiar with Allied back in the day, they had probably 300 locations across the country. They were distributors for roofing, and then they were starting into solar. So um, spent the summer as an intern with Dave there. I was the fourth person in the solar division, which was kind of cool because it was this kind of startup feel within,
Sure.
a large organization. So really, as a kickstart to my career, it was is an amazing experience because I got to learn the solar and the roofing industry from inside out, right? I was working with the manufacturers, I was working with the financiers, I was also working with the contractors and the installers. So it was a really cool way to learn the industry. And I did that I was there for about 7 years. I was there for the transition from Allied to Beacon when Beacon purchased Allied. And I recognized in my years there that there was zero distribution for solar in the Midwestern market, specifically in Minnesota. So I'm in Minnesota talking to solar installers, realizing that they are bringing products in from Florida, New Jersey, California,
Wow.
right? So, the logistical costs were insane, half the product showing up broken. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. So, good news is that, Allied at the time, this is pre-Beacon, had a location right in St. Paul. And they had about 10,000 square feet left over of space. And I had heard that they were, going into the slower season. So they had drivers that they were going to have to move to different locations. And so, grabbed a beer with the manager there. And I was like, look, I've got POs ready to go that I need to bring in local. Let's just bring it through your branch. And he said, all right, let's do it. So shipped a bunch of product in a couple days. We had moved it and realized that, hey, just by fixing these logistics with our existing fleet that we had, we were able to service those customers. So that got me thinking on this kind of trajectory of not being afraid to think outside the box a little bit, I think, when it came to being a young guy in a large organization. And, that is what prompted me to start thinking about my customers a little more as well. And I had this epiphany one day where I realized I was getting a little big for my britches. I was getting a little cocky. But if you'd put me in a home in front of somebody, I would have no idea how to sell them solar at the time, right? And let alone roofs either. So I went on the journey to kind of say, I got to get good at this. So I started shadowing my customers, shadowing reps, and that really led me on a path to start to understand what it meant to be a door-to-door or in-home salesperson, really experiencing the life of 4 to 5 hour long appointments, driving 2 hours and getting kicked off the porch, even though the appointment was set that morning from the homeowner. And from there, I met a partner of mine and started a roofing and solar company in Florida. I was a little naive at the time, maybe, but thought, hey, I can do this better myself. And then spent the next 6 years battling, you know, growing a company and all that comes with it from there.
And that was in Florida, you said.
Yes, so that's where I'm still at today, still in Fort Myers. From Penn State, when I was my allied days was actually living in New Jersey, flying every week out to Minneapolis to run that branch. And then when the opportunity came to start that business, we opened that up in Naples, Florida. And I'll never forget the day when I made the decision. It was about negative 40 degrees, and I'm sitting in Minneapolis, and I'm sitting on the in the I'm sitting on FaceTime with my student B business partner, and he was on his boat, shirtless, drinking a Corona, with palm trees in the back. And I said, you know what, I think this is the move. So I flew back to New Jersey, and I sat down with my now wife, and I said, so what do you think about our options? I said we can either move to Minnesota full time, or we can move to Florida and do this new venture. And she goes, I think Minnesota. And I said, I don't think you understood the question.
So you ran that business for 6 years,
That's right. Yeah.
and have you exited that business and you're still in it, or what's your current status with that?
I did. So I exited about coming up on a year and a half ago, not terribly long. Um, you know, there was a lot of success and a lot of failures that I personally had within that business. Um, Solar itself, as we call it, the solar coaster, has gone through, an up and down
Yeah.
battle, one that's not going to end anytime soon. Personally, I'm a big believer in the product, but I'm not a believer in many ways the market. And I'll be the first
Yeah.
to say that. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people listening would probably agree. I'm sure many people listening have had great experiences with solar, and the majority may have had bad experiences. And it really just comes down to, how were you sold? And unfortunately, the reality of the more solar reps that I work with, I realize that they have no idea what they're talking about. And
Yeah, that's for sure. We had a good episode with BD Electric and Solar he was on, and I think he dispelled a lot of those myths. So then how did you come to be at Siro? Tell me about that relationship and how that was formed.
yeah, it's a great question. So through those years at Zondo Energy, which is the name of the solar company, um, we pivoted into roofing because we wanted to bring in a product that was a little more stable, but at the same time, ethically speaking, I think a solar should be installed on a new roof if you're going to match
Oh
the.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So it was a natural move, but as we were doing that, we were also opening up new locations. So we were pivoting as a company from a single location to multiple, which brings its own problems. And I found myself spending a lot of time on the road, doing those ride-along shadows, trainings to my team, one-on-one and in a group setting. And I quickly realized that even though they, in a way, looked up to me, respected me for what we were doing, I wasn't actually very effective in changing their habits in the home. And I use the word habits on purpose because when we're a sales rep and we go into a home, we go right back to muscle memory. We go back
Yeah,
to,
100%. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I told I was speaking to I signed a couple of, pre-construction agreements over the weekend, and
yeah.
both of them were signed completely differently. I did the entire process differently on both of them, and I said to my two people in the office today, you need to make me a checklist. So when they're at that point where we're signing that pre-construction agreement, I pull up the checklist and I actually follow the checklist because I did them both completely differently. So
Yeah, and there's so many small nuances in the way things can be said that,
yeah.
and at the end of,
But so what was the connection to Cyril though? How did you know about this product? Did you start using it? I mean, what was
yeah,
what was the connection?
yeah. So during that process, we started to have our reps record their conversations on their phone. And, because we were like, we can't be everywhere at once. We need to be able to know
Yep.
what's going on. And look, it wasn't so that we could come down on our reps and say what they're doing wrong. It was so that we could understand what they were saying so we could coach them and support them. And,
Right.
I get a call from a sales director and he's like, hey, I got a Dropbox for you for all the recordings. And it was like 400 plus hours of recordings. Like, where do I start? So I'm laying in bed with my headphones in, listening to a 3 hour long appointment, falling asleep, trying to take notes, zero idea of how to create a correlation. So it's like, there's got to be a better way to do this. So I went searching for products and stumbled upon Siro. And, speaking truthfully, we were looking at bringing it into the company at the time, but we were so far along at this point, trying to raise more money and things. And hate to say it this way, but sometimes it's easier to bury your head in sand than to truly, unearth the problems that exist.
Oh
And
yeah. Yeah.
at that time, that's when I started to realize that I thought that I could potentially be more effective, based off of what I had learned on a larger scale, right? I always like to go into things where I'm learning. My dad always said, get paid to go to school. And I think it was a time where I was like, you know what, I want to move into a space where I can better understand home improvement as a whole, and I can help bring a tool like this to people who are experiencing the same problems that I was experiencing at the time. So, I was very lucky actually in that research, found out that a good friend of mine had actually worked with the head of sales at Siro. So I had a direct line in and I was able to set up a conversation with them. And it made sense for me to join based off of my experience with the home improvement industry. So, it was an exciting time about a year and a half ago when I joined Siro, and it's been a lot of fun because at the end of the day, what I get to do, and I think you've seen this yourself, Buzz, but my goal isn't to just show people what Siro does. I really want to help them implement it. What do you actually do on a daily
Right.
basis?
Yeah.
You know, um, I've bought a lot of software over the years, some good, some bad, and
Yeah.
the I found though the correlation of my success with that software didn't actually have to do with how good the software was. It just came down to how I used it. So,
Yeah, that's definitely part of it for sure.
and
So
now,
let's talk about, so that's your journey to Sero. So tell us, what your job there is, what your position is, and then let's go into what Sero is.
yeah, great question. So, uh, my day to day at Siro, is talking, it's what we call the go-to-market side, right? So I'm talking to business owners, sales managers, um, showing them what Siro does and helping them implement that essentially. So, there's a sales element to it, but my particular focus is with our partners. And that's an important point because looking at home improvement, CRMs became popular, a handful of years ago, right? Many people have been using CRMs for a very long time, called since the 90s, 80s even, right? But the majority of the market really started to adopt it, called over the last 10 years. But what we're now seeing the second shift is the never-ending list of additional software. Now there's a software that does everything. And when you're planning your business and you're trying to understand your P&L and what is the cost of my tech stack going to be now and into the future, it can get exhausting when there's always something new to be looking at. Right.
Right.
So I work with a lot of owners that are kind of hit that wall and they go, well, when's it going to end? Next thing you know, you're spending 20, 30, 40, $100,000 on software a month and you're going, this doesn't make any sense. So a big portion of my day to day is to work with those owners to help them understand what is that full tech stack, not just Siro itself, how does Siro help, but what software could they utilize across their company, and then just as importantly, where's the cost savings? Because if we're going to add $1,000 in cost, it better save me too. So where does that come from? And I
Right.
think that helps people understand the long-term goal for how they can utilize technology across their company, whether it be sales, operations, forecasting, purchasing, anything, right?
Interesting. And so tell me about the history of the company itself, because I looked up the domain and the domain has been registered for a long time. So what was the early days of Sero? Was it still software or what was it in the early days?
Yeah, so Jake is our founder and CEO, and he's got a cool story. He Brilliant guy. He was a Cutco knife sales guy in college, and he was actually the number one. He went to Penn in Philadelphia, and he was studying computer engineering. And then in the summer, he would sell Cutco knives door to door. And as he was doing well, he built a team around him, and he was really struggling to replicate himself, right? So he was consistently the best sales rep above any of the reps that he would hire and train. So he realized that he couldn't be with them on every single door. He was only seeing the tip of the iceberg of what they were talking about the homeowners, and he knew there had to have been a better way. So early stages of Siro, when he started to code this in college, was pretty rudimentary. It was basically recording, the conversations at the door, what the reps were talking about, and it was using at the time what was a semblance of AI to organize that information so that he could listen to it and he could find good examples from his team to play for the rest of his team. Because at the end of the day, we find that that's how reps really learn, right? They learn by
Right.
listening to each other.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? What's the old saying? You can lead a horse to water, you can't make him drink. And when a rep accepts something and they have that golden moment of, oh, I like that, I'm going to use that, that's where we see their habit change. So bringing that to today, what's Zero today? In the age of AI, right? We are seeing what we call AI agents become really, really powerful. So we look at what called a year and a half, 2 years ago, and it's amazing how time's flying. When kind of ChatGPT first announced their chat function, right? So prior to ChatGPT, it was just GPT. Then they added chat. So AI has actually been around for longer than people realize. But once they created the chat function, that's where people could actually use it, right? So little knowledge on AI itself. AI is what we call LLMs, and the LLM stands for large language model, right? So if we think of ChatGPT, ChatGPT is one large language model. It is a computer understanding of the English language in this case. So once they created the chat function, the chat function is like the car around the engine. The LLM or the AI, that's the engine. The car allows us to drive it and get use out of it. So if we had an engine sitting in our garage right now, it wouldn't be much use to us. That's what AI was, right? So what you're seeing today are companies like ChatGPT, like Siro, and others create the car. What we are doing is we are deploying these AI agents that are doing tasks for us in a way that we can use them, right? So
Right.
we have something called a scorecard. And what the scorecard does is it's going to look at thousands of hours of recordings, and the AI agents are going to understand those recordings, break them all down into key moments, good moments and bad, and it's going to pop it out into a nice clean scorecard for us so that we can look at any rep and we can see exactly the moments that they are hitting or missing, how well they're doing on each, and where they need to be coached so that we can jump in and listen to that key moment. So I could have a rep with
Yeah, yeah.
10,000 hours and I can go right to the moment that's important.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously, I'm a new customer.
Yeah.
So I have had two meetings.
Hmm.
Uh, so far, I'm batting 1,000 on my wins because I have two meetings and two wins. So I guess maybe Ciro's my lucky charm.
I like to hear it.
Um, Fascinating. I still obviously at the very beginnings of understanding the software
Yeah.
and looking at my report. Um, I had no idea I was speaking that fast. It says I was speaking at 165 words a minute. Um, I I I never would have guessed that in a million years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and I think it was 12 or 14,000 words and I'm pretty short. It was only about an hour and a half meeting.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of filler words. I was surprised at how much I used a filler word.
Mhm.
I'm not sure that that's a big deal or not. I don't know if that's bad or good. It's just interesting to look at that data.
Well, that's the fun, and I'm personally looking forward to working with you to start to dive into that. You know, we've seen we're starting to see a shift, and this is a cool thing is things are consistently getting better. So let's go back a couple years to some the first early customers of Siro. There have always been these truths that we thought to be true. And what I mean by that is pacing. Let's say, so you're at 165 words per minute. Well, Buzz, when I first started at Siro, I found out I was at 210. So the question is what's good or what's bad?
Yeah.
And with every new Siro user and with every new recording, we are getting more information to be able to understand what actually results in wins. And for a very long time, it's funny that you bring up what we call pacing, words per minute, because pacing we always thought was very important. I run the data on tens of thousands of appointments and realize that pacing actually has a very little influence on the outcome of the day. So that is something that coaches and trainers have been preaching for years.
Yeah, oh yeah, I've always heard, 150 or less words a minute.
That's what they say. The
Yeah.
data shows differently, right? So what we are finding to be more important is being a chameleon. What's your match rate, right? So if I'm in Boston or if I'm in New York or if I'm in Texas or if I'm in Alabama, we're going to be speaking to different types of people who are speaking differently. So what we found are good sales reps are more of a chameleon who are able to match the pacing of their customer. That has a larger influence. But there's also an element where there's a nuance to reps being themselves. People build trust. So if I speak naturally 200 and I try to speak at 160, it might sound ingenuine. So
Right.
there's a new score we're looking at is how genuine does the person sound. So the cool thing is that I think when a lot of people start working with Siro, they have an idea in mind of what they want their sales rep to sound like, be like, and say. And they try to use the tool to put that rep into a box, right? So that every rep's the same, it's replicable, and we can scale, right? But I work with a guy, Dom, over at Grosso University, who we've talked about, and he says something cool that I like. He always says, you know, build a box for the rep so that they can live outside of it. So these parameters are important to start. If you're taking somebody who's fresh, never sold before, we've got to give them guidance. We've got to give them a process to follow. We've got to give them benchmarks to try and hit. And when they're hitting those and comfortable, that's when they have the ability to start to ad lib a little bit and be themselves and bring that out. So, veterans of the industry and people who have been doing this for a very long time have the ability to be a little more fluid, right? But you have to kind of earn that a little bit, you know. And that's, I think, when we're looking into the future state of Siro and AI in general, I think we're going to be flipping some stones and thinking differently about what we've always thought to work. The information showing us otherwise.
Yeah, so let's talk about some use cases for the product.
Yeah.
Obviously, right now I'm a single user,
Hmm?
and my goal is to document what I'm doing. I would caution everyone that's starting on this trail, it's no different than videoing yourself and then watching the video. So it's gonna hurt.
Hmm.
Just embrace that because it will only make you better. And you'll realize all the words that you're saying that aren't actually words and all the things that you're doing that don't make any sense. So that's just part of it. But let's talk about, the use case for a larger organization that has, maybe 5 or 10 sales reps that are on the road.
Hmm.
How does that help that organization? How does Zero, work into that organization, if you will?
Yeah, absolutely. There are, as we're growing, there's a kind of different ceilings that we're going to hit that we have to push through. And we can kind of bring up some use cases for each, right? From being an owner, seller, to bringing in your first team, to building that team to that 5 to 10, and then ultimately scaling from there. And one thing I experienced in my Zondo days is that there are different problems at each stage, right? You've seen that yourself as well, Buzz.
Oh
So,
yeah.
kind of talking specifically on that 5 to 10 range, this is where we start to see a loss of control and even more importantly, a loss of understanding of what's happening in the home. And when we have the ability as a manager, whether we're a direct line sales manager or an owner, there's a level of communication that we can kind of maintain when you're in that 0 to 5 rep range. But as you start to move past that, what you start to see is going to happen is you're going to start to get the same questions from the same reps over and over and over again. Right? Let's look at something simple. How do I overcome the objection of price? Well, on Tuesday, I might get it from one rep, and the next Wednesday, I get that question from that rep, and then Friday, I get it from another. So I decided, you know what, this week's sales meeting, we're going to talk about the price objection and how we can overcome it. We're doing role plays, fake scenarios. We're all talking about what we do in the home, but the problem is that they're not real life scenarios.
Right.
So how
Yeah,
do
it's made up because you don't have a real prospect in front of you.
correct? So if I've got an organization, let's say it's 7 people, right? And I pull Siro up and and the Siro dashboard shows me that I'm getting the price objection 40% of the time across my team. And then the next objection is I need to get other quotes, but I'm only getting that 20%, right? So clearly, from what Ciro's showing me, is that this is the objection that's hurting us the most, right? So this is probably where we should put some time. Now, in the past, even if I had that information, I now, as a manager, as an owner, would have to put together content and training material to coach my team. The problem with this as we start to scale is that I now still have to be the person that comes up with every answer. Well, I may be removed from the field. Maybe it's been a year since I've run an appointment, or I'm not running it as
Right.
often as them. And
Yeah, and your answer might not be the right answer anymore either.
correct, times have
Yeah.
changed. So what we would like to do at Siro is we like to try and kind of extract as much information from our reps as we can so that they can, in a way, be the ones feeding us with great examples. Right. So what I'm going to do with Siro in that case is I'm going to create a playlist. I'm going to go in and I'm going to first look at who's the rep on my team who is overcoming this objection the most. Siro can show that to you. Right. So let's say it's a guy named Chris, right? Okay, Chris is the best at overcoming this objection. He overcomes it 40% of the time. He's the best in the company. I'm now going to curate a playlist on his recordings to show me, all right, over the past month, show me every moment that Chris has overcome this objection and won. So in about 10 minutes of time, I could probably listen to 6 or 7 moments. I can hear the customer. How did they phrase the actual objection? What was his response? How did he overcome it? Right. And then what I can do is I can share that with my team. So now if I'm still in that, in that meeting, let's listen to a real life example
Yeah,
of
yeah. Yep.
overcoming this. It's funny, I was doing a demo the other day and
Wait, before we get off of that, so just so people really understand that, and I didn't understand it the first time you showed it to me, and I've already used it a couple times. So I was looking for a specific moment of a recording that I wanted to play for somebody in particular. It
Mhm,
had nothing to do with the sale. It had to do with some puppies actually.
mhm,
And I just went into the search and typed in, litter mates, and it came right up. And I clicked on the little blue circle, and it
mhm.
went right to that recording, and it started playing right from there.
That's right.
And I was like, wow, this is wild. So I just wanted to people understand how fast it is to find that section you're looking for.
No, I appreciate that insight. Sometimes I forget. I've been using Siri for so long and talking about Siri for so long. To me, this is normal now, and
Yeah,
it is
yeah, yeah.
fun.
Yeah, so again, in that scenario, we're in that sales meeting and Jimmy or Sally says, well, I'm getting blown out on sales, 80% of the time or price objection.
Mhm.
And Harry says, well, I'm not having that problem. We open up Harry's recordings, you type in price objection or whatever the keyword is, and now we can listen to Harry and Mr. and Mrs. Smith have that live conversation. And obviously, we want to play the ones where he won,
Correct.
and then maybe talk about some of the ones where he didn't win, and everybody says, "Well, now I understand why he didn't win," and Harry's going to say, "Well, I see now why he didn't win," or not every deal's winnable either, but it just the power of that is unbelievable when you really start understanding. Again, I had you show me the demonstration, and I was like, okay, that's cool, but then actually doing that one little demonstration for myself, I was like, okay, now I understand the power of this thing.
Well, think about the time you saved. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It literally took me. I did again, brand new to the software. It probably took me 15 seconds.
yeah, right there.
Yeah,
It's pretty intuitive. And
yeah,
there's a theme there where for years I felt like I would wake up on the Monday morning and I'd be looking at the KPIs from the week before, closing rate, sales, things like that. And so let's we average about 35% closing, and let's say that week we're at 29. So okay, we've got a problem. I felt like I went on a week-long search to try and figure out why we had dropped 6% last week. And generally by Friday, I may have found a couple reasons. Well, the
yeah,
week's over. It's
yeah,
done.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
spent
And then you already had another 29-degree week, 29% week because you didn't fix it to begin with.
correct. Right. So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
throwing
So you
the
actually lost 2 weeks.
did. So if with Siro, I can wake up on Monday morning and pull this up and see exactly where the problem is. Great, here are the objection. Oh, interesting. We got this objection 20 more percent more times than this. Or we got it the same amount, but we didn't overcome it. And I can go listen to that key moment. I start my Monday fixing the problem, not trying to find it.
Yeah, and additionally for people that have multiple reps, they can actually have some real role playing because you can hear it live of an actual person, not a made up,
Yep.
you being the prospect and making up what you think they're going to say. It's real in-house objections that everyone can listen to and talk about,
Mhm.
and everyone can get coached on the win and how the win occurred and what happened previously to. So it's I again I can truthfully say I got what you were saying, but I didn't understand the power of it till I pressed that little blue one and heard myself speaking about that specific thing instantaneously.
Well,
And I
there's,
will say you were right about the recording. I just sat the phone on the table in front of us. I mean, obviously, I told the people I was recording it, but just
yeah.
sat the phone on the table, and I was amazed. There was three people in the room, and one was way over in the dining room, and it was still crystal clear. You
Nice.
could hear what they were saying.
Well, and that's an important point there, Buzz, because people always ask, do I need to use a microphone? Do I need to use something else? We just use the hardware that we have. And what's the one thing that every single person has in their pocket? It's a phone with a
Yeah,
microphone.
no, I mean it literally I just turned it on. I let them know that I was going to record the meeting in order so I could to pay attention and not take a bunch of notes, and just swiped it up to close that screen and just left it on the desk and let it play away. And then the other thing I was impressed with is as soon as the meeting was done, I stopped the recording. It literally, I don't even know how fast it processed it, but it was pretty much instantaneously. I was looking at the data.
Yeah,
And
the whole
within
it's there. It's ready to
with
go.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I don't know, I think there was no lag at all. If there was, it was 10 seconds.
Yeah. Well, and
Um,
that's an important note too. The only time you ever see a lag is if you don't have service, but you don't need service, which is great. So if you do, it's instantaneous. But if you don't, I mean, how many times have we gone to a home, that's yeah, either in the middle of nowhere or there just always seems to be pockets of no service.
yeah,
People
yeah.
and
Oh, so I never even asked you that question. So you'll make the recording, and then once you go back in service, then the AI will process the sound.
yep,
Interesting. I did.
yep,
Yeah. So you never have to worry about whether you have service, just get the recording, and then once you're back in range or Wi-Fi, whatever it is, it'll go ahead and process the data.
that's right. That's exactly what I'll do. I've got
Wow.
I've got one more story for you. We're talking about use cases, right? And I think this one
Yeah.
is just a good example of a problem. So and how to solve it. I was working with an organization and they had an internal goal. They wanted to get to 40% of their business coming from referrals. And it was a goal for the year, something they wanted to set, and they were at 5%. So we're talking about
Wow.
quite a
Okay.
jump. And the thing was that they had this one rep who was really good at it. She was bringing in 40% of her business from referrals, and that's why they had set that goal there. And they had spent months coaching and training. They had brought her in, the person who's best at this, to stand in front of everybody and coach and train them on it. But guess what? Not all the reps make good coaches. And she's up there trying to explain what she's doing and talking about it, and everyone's nodding along, but the dots were never connected for what they should actually be doing in the home. So the funny thing was, is we launched Siro and we pull it up, and we found the first problem. Reps were only asking for referrals 4% of the time.
Four?
4%.
Are you saying four, right? One, two, three, four?
Two, three, four, single digit.
Yeah, I would say that's probably the first problem.
First problem, you can't get referrals, you
Yeah.
don't ask for them.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so what they were able to do is first and foremost, they just made that the focus for the week. They had their sales meeting in that week and they said, guys, you know what? There's a lot we need to improve upon, but we've talked about this before, but we're not going to leave this until we're good at it. So let's talk about referrals. How do we ask for them? And they said, you know what? As a rep, if you're going to listen to anything, listen to yourself and listen to others, listen to how we're each asking for referrals. So they didn't have to pull up a random appointment and go searching for it. They just pulled up the referral bookmark and they had an instant playlist and they could jump to every time that a rep would ask for
Wow.
referrals. Now, what became very popular was to listen to the woman who was the best at it. And what they found,
Sure.
it was very simple of what she did. She'd walk into the home, and I listened to one of these examples. She'd walk into the home and she would just building rapport and small talk, ask about random things around the house. And in the example that I heard from her, she points to the TV. And she goes, what is that, a Vizio? Just making small talk. And you hear the husband go, yeah, it's a 55 inch. And she goes, well, what do you mean? He goes, well, I really want the 80-inch TV. And he kind of, you hear in his voice, he makes a joke. He goes, but it's not a priority, and you hear the wife laughing, right? So you can tell that there's a little turmoil around that. And she goes, well, remind me about the referral program later, and she kind of just leaves a little tidbit there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
She goes through the pitch. She's selling windows. They end up buying the windows, signing the contract. And then she sits there and goes, oh, you know what? Almost forgot about a referral program. She goes, I was driving down the street coming to the appointment with you guys today. I noticed a lot of the houses in the neighborhood are, very similar to yours, have old windows, could probably benefit from new windows like you. And she goes, that referral program is $500 for everybody that signs up. And then she paused for a second and goes, oh, I just thought about this too. Two of those, that's $1,000. How much did you say that TV was? He goes, $800. She goes, perfect. There's your new 80-inch TV, and you got $200 left over to take her to dinner. So the point was, is everyone listened to that. She had been for
Yeah,
months trying to explain what she does, but she couldn't explain it. They heard.
yeah. There's nothing like a live action to really understand what's going on.
Yeah. Well, the company's at 15% referrals now and growing. So, you
Okay.
know,
All right.
we've seen the move,
Yeah.
now they're asking for it 80% of the time. So, it's
Wow.
find the problem, find the solution, make it really easy for reps to engage and buy in.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's the
Fascinating. So that's all the good stuff. What's the bad stuff?
Yeah, great question. I think one of the two biggest questions that I get, which are good questions. Number one, rep buy-in, right? Incredibly important, right? So we're living in a world, we've got our sales reps on our team. They haven't been recorded up to this point, right? So you're going to launch something like Siro. Are we going to get pushback? And I'll be the first to tell you, sometimes yes, right? I mean, we've been living in a world as a rep where we haven't had anyone looking over our shoulder, and suddenly we are, right? So how do we get their buy-in? And there's a nuance to it. So when we work with people, we have a four-step process that we walk them through to really push engagement with the reps. But what's important with us at Siro is that we spend quite a bit of time making sure the reps feel personal value, right? So you, Buzz, right? You were pretty open to recording yourself. You told me yourself you've always been one understanding that you can get better at sales, like we all can, but not every rep thinks that way, right? So I don't want to shy away from that topic. That's an important one. But it's something we've spent quite a bit of time working on and working with reps. And I tell you what, my favorite part of this job is working with reps who apologize. They'll literally apologize, say, hey, I just got to say I'm sorry. I was really against this at the beginning. I wasn't game for it, but now I've won more deals. My closing percentage is up. I'm making more money. They see
Yeah.
the value in it. Now they're the Zero Power user. So what I'm not going to tell you right now, and anybody listening, that if you've got a concern about your reps, that it's a fake concern. Of course, it's a real one, and it's one we don't take lightly. You got to remember the story of Jake, our CEO. He was a rep himself, so we're built for reps. That's our goal here. But that is something that we take quite a bit of time from a support perspective from Siro and our team to make sure that we are working with the reps directly, not just managers.
Yeah.
You
No,
know,
again, new user, two meetings. In the beginnings of understanding what I'm even looking at for metrics, probably not enough data yet to really call any real meaningful. Although my speaking cadence was exactly the same between the two meetings, which was fascinating. I was like, wow. I mean, 165 and 165, not like 163 and 166. It was 165, 165. I was like, okay, that's wild. Um, so that was very interesting. So
there's
I'm looking forward. So let's talk about new user case. Let's just kind of give a plug here for Siro. So new user case. So now you have the ability. So, I looked at this type of product 3 years ago, 2 years ago, minimum 10 users, blah, blah, blah. We don't want you for your little fish. And then obviously your owner said, hey, there's a lot of little fish. A little fish add up to a lot of fish. Plus, in the software world, once I get used to using Siro, unless you totally mess it up, it's going to take a lot for someone else to pry me away from you, right? I mean,
Yeah.
just straight up. So if I'm a Siro guy and I'm using Siro and Tiddlywinks comes along and says we're better than Siro, I'm like, okay, you got to prove it to me, and it'd have to be like, my whole methodology is built around. I understand the software, blah blah blah. It's going to take a lot to pry me out of that, a lot, unless you totally screw up the product.
Well, I
Right?
appreciate you saying that, Buzz, but
No,
we're
I mean that's just the facts of it. You're
yeah,
not gonna, I'm on Build a Trend right now, and I hate Build a Trend.
yeah.
But the thought of switching to Job Tread is just
I
I
know.
just
I mean, it's because it's time, it's effort, it's work.
yeah,
It's
I the pain of that and the
yeah,
suffering, I don't hate it that much.
yeah. Well, let me ask you this, Buzz, as a
And no, but here's a point to that. So I was really hating it so bad, and then the other day they came out with a new function where you have a one click to get a builder's risk policy. And I tried it and it worked unbelievable. And the policy was phenomenal and the price was phenomenal. And
nice.
I'm like, okay, maybe I'm in them for a little longer.
I'm intrigued. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's my point. So
Bring it
now for
going.
yes, yeah. So for now for Siro,
Yes.
so shout out to Build a Trend if you're listening. You did something right. Thank you. And you didn't make it overcomplicated in 15 clicks and it actually worked. So good job. Whoever built that, good job. They need a raise.
That's great.
Um, So let's talk about Siro. So Siro, we can have a one user, which is
Hmm.
myself now,
Yep.
and then we can scale as we want.
Hmm.
Refresh my memory. It's a 1 year commitment, but you pay by the month,
That's right.
right? And then as I scale more reps, at some point it becomes less per rep.
That's right. Yep. Definitely. As anything, economies of scale. Um,
Yep.
our costs decrease. There's always a function of COGS in all.
Sure. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So absolutely, we can reduce that price for anybody the larger they get, and the more reps that we're bringing on. We don't charge for managers, though, just recording licenses. So Buzz, as you're building your team, right? And if there's ever a moment where you are no longer running appointments and just overseeing that, you'd be free in that case, right? So we really, we work with organizations with thousands of reps down to single owner, right? But I personally love working with organizations where the owner is trying to take that step out of the field because that is the first hardest. I think it's harder to bring on your first handful of reps than to go from 20 to 40, right?
Yeah.
So,
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
well, because the
But
revenue is so important at that point, right? Every
yeah.
single
Well, listen, you don't have anything if you don't have sales. I
that's
mean, that's right?
that's
You can have all the best systems and the best builders and the best ADUs and the best. If you can't sell to anybody, you're not going to make any money. You're not going to be around,
that's right,
right?
and that's a
So
scary moment. That,
someone's got to, at some point, it's just like, it's like I always say it, at some point, we got to stop talking and go build something.
that's right. We're good at
You know
that.
what I mean?
So
So, that's kind of a famous slogan that I've had for years. I'm like, okay, we got to stop talking about this. We got to go build something. So in
speak,
this case, we got to stop talking about, we got to go sell something.
we got to go sell. Well,
Yeah,
speaking of
yeah.
selling and building and those things, right? What's new to Siro as well? And I'm not even sure if we just are launching this, so I'm not sure
Well,
if you.
before we get to what's new,
Yeah.
so just for people listening,
Hmm.
recordings last forever,
They do.
correct? No limit of recordings per rep,
Correct.
right? So unlimited. The search engine function, I noticed that I can bookmark favorite sections of mine,
Mhm.
lots of folder options. There's a lot going on in there.
Yep.
So for someone that wants a lot of functionality, it's there. Someone of myself, a new user, I just wanted to find that one section. It was very intuitive. So shout out to whoever is designing and building your software. Let them know that it was, I'm fairly tech savvy, but it was very intuitive, minimal clicks, found exactly what I wanted, and it did exactly what I wanted it to do.
Well, it's a shining review, and I appreciate that. I will take the moment to shout out our engineers. Something at Siro, which is cool, is that nothing is outsourced, everything's internal. So all of our engineers work in the same office together.
Yeah, that makes sense. That shows. That shows.
Yeah, and they're
Yeah,
brilliant.
that definitely shows.
We do a lot of cool things at Siro. So we have a policy where every single person needs to at least once a month do some customer facing. right? So whether it's on a call, going on a trip to see one of our customers, we're big believers in that. Even our engineers, people who are coding this product, we still want them to understand what it is.
Yeah, that no, that you know what? That all makes sense. That's why it works. 100%. That's a great policy.
Yeah. And we see ourselves as stewards to the home improvement industry. We don't take lightly the, the importance of what AI is
So we're
and
gonna wait, hang on. We're gonna roll that out. So we're gonna have the buzz ride along. We're gonna have the buzz ride along here once a month or something. Everybody's got to take a turn coming on an appointment.
hey, you're gonna get to know the whole Siro team. We're growing like crazy, so we've got a lot of people for you to meet with, but I like it. The buzz right along.
No, I just no. I'm internally. I'm saying from everyone from accounting all the way up through the videographers. Everybody's gonna come and go in the house with
On
me.
your side, yeah, now I see. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. On site, we're going live action.
Well, I tell you what, it's easy to, I think, minimize the difficulties of what it takes to be a sales rep in the home. And at the same time, it's easy to minimize the difficulties of what it takes to install. I'll tell you what, once a month I used to go on site, with my installers, and whew, you do that for a day, and yeah, you're looking at their pay a little differently pretty quickly. I mean, they're
Yeah,
30 in the morning
that's for sure.
rises. I'm in Florida. It's funny. I got my long sleeves on, and this has become natural to me. And I never understood it when I first moved here. And then the very first day up on a metal roof, and I'm getting up underneath the solar panel, and my arm hits the roof, and it took out all of the hair along my arm, and I had a burn mark for 6 months. I went, now I get it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
drinking
yeah, 100%. So
water.
let's talk about. So we know what Siro is today. What is the future? What's the next evolution of the software?
Yeah. So when Siri was first created, it was meant to be a coaching tool and a management tool as far as, what's going on in the field with our reps. How do we use this tool to improve their sales skills? What's the shift that's occurring is how else can we use this information? Because this has been a black box, a black hole of info, which is at the end of the day, one of the most important the moments that the homeowners are working with us the most. This is the moment that they are feeling our brand and they are communicating to us, how they perceive us, what's important to them. So we're graduating from coaching and now we're getting into how do we start to use this information for other parts of the business. One of the problems that I had in the past was cancellations. We would celebrate sales. Here in Florida, we've got a 3-day right to rescind where they could cancel, and a handful of those would. So, how do we use AI to now identify, even though this is sold, is it a solid sale? Is it a soft sale? What are the reasons they might cancel? If we can get that into the back, the team's hands, we can stop those cancellations. Um, Forecasting for product is incredibly important, right? I can't tell you how many times we would sell a roof and, you know, can't get a hold of the homeowner. We're putting this through engineering. It's going through permitting. We're buying product. We find out that the homeowner's in Europe for 3 months, right? So our forecasting's off. I've overbought on product. Those are things that were communicated in the home. If we can capture that and bring it into a CRM, our operational team is cleaner, right? Think
Yeah.
about marketing. I never forget we did a radio ad for a month. It's $5,000 for the month. All the buzz. My wife was literally in a store on a Saturday. She hears the radio ad, right? Reps are calling in. Homeowners are loving the radio ad. You know how many leads we got from that radio ad? Zero. So you know what we did? We shut it down. And the reason was is I had nothing to point to. I couldn't actually
Right.
conceptualize the effect that it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
having on our business. So if I can now grab that information and conceptualize that, my marketing becomes stronger. Now, the thing we're doing today, which is the first step, is what we call our follow-ups. And this is my favorite. We are
What
now,
is it called?
it's called follow-ups.
Follow-ups. Okay.
Follow-ups. So once a month, I used to go through all of my no sales, hundreds of them, and I would call homeowners just to get a sense for what their thoughts were. The amount of people that I had talked to that loved us, loved the rep, loved our price, ended up with going somebody else because our timing was wrong, right? And we lost out on that opportunity, made me sick. So what Siro is now going to do is it's going to grade every single one of your no sales on the chances of it closing through follow-up out of 5. So
Wow.
if I'm sitting here and say I've got two reps in my business, right? I'm just starting to put people into the
Yeah.
field and I don't have time to just go back and look at every single appointment they're running. Siro will surface for you every missed opportunity and it'll tell you why. It'll tell you exactly.
Yeah. So I got a wild idea for you that just popped into my head.
Yeah.
So in the next version, I want an earpiece, and Ciro's going to coach me
Yeah,
live in the sales meeting.
I love it. I'll tell you this, Buzz, things are in the works. Um,
I snuffed it out before you let
yes.
it out there. I do it.
Just to kind of break that down a bit, there are a lot of nuances to it, right? And I think one of the things about Sierra that I really enjoy is we prioritize good product over a flashy product.
Right.
Because there are a lot of cool things that we've seen out there, and then you go to use it and it doesn't actually function
Yeah, yeah, it doesn't work.
work
Yeah,
with
yeah.
day to day. So what you're talking, there are a lot of nuances to what you're talking about. So we are actively looking at how do we continue to support reps live in the home.
Yeah, I want the AI coach in my ear. I'm advocating for the AI coach in my ear.
Yeah. So
Live.
yes, you know what's really cool too, Buzz, is that what I'm consistently amazed by our engineers is how they're able to create products that I will bring an idea like that to the table, and then the product that we actually get is way more powerful.
Yeah, yeah. But
It's an
listen, I want credit. I want credit for that idea. I want that to be the buzz AI.
Buzz AI. I like. It's got a ring to it, right? Hey, you know what? It's the buzz. It's the buzz in your ear.
I'm
So
telling you, it all works.
it makes
It
sense.
all works.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
they're
no, that's it's exciting stuff. I know obviously, there's two sides of AI, and some people are scared to death of it and other people are maximizing it.
yeah.
I think I'm in both camps in 1 minute and other camp the other minute, so I go back and forth, but it's not going away. I'm trying to utilize it the best I can and understand how it can help my business and help my customers.
Yep.
Um, I
Well,
see I see a lot of positives. I see a lot of negatives. Hopefully, the positive outweighs the negative. So
well, I think you hit the nail on the head, Buzz. It's not going anywhere. It's here to stay.
no,
People are
yeah,
interacting with AI every day without even realizing it. And I'm not talking about a
100%.
or something, but like
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
work in the background.
yeah,
But when I joined, because I wrestled with that to be honest a little bit myself, joining Siro and what I kind of came to grips with is this is going to happen with or without me. I can either
yeah, yeah.
or I can try and help guide it in the right way. And who knows? We'll see if it's a winning or losing battle, but at least at the end of the day, I can say I tried. So
My money's on you, brother. My money's on you.
I appreciate that, Buzz.
All
Uh,
right. Favorite tool you can't live without, and it can't be Zero.
favorite tool. Um, Now you're talking in the business sense, or we're talking
Yeah, it
personal?
could be anything. Personal tool, fishing rod, whatever it is, your favorite tool.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say I just installed a drip irrigation system at my house. I'm a big gardener. I like to work hard and I travel a lot, and I kick back and relax with my garden, my bonsai trees, and I just installed a whole drip irrigation system, which is saving me about an hour and a half of time a day now, and more importantly, my wife an hour and a half a day when I'm on the road. So I'm looking at utility out of a tool I have. That's my favorite one. But it's funny because the reason I think I say that too is I I made a shift in my life a little bit a while ago. I'm really good at working hard, and I started saying, okay, well, what's the thing that I can create that's going to free my time up, right? And the funny thing is that drip irrigation system was on my to-do list for the last 2 years. And I look back and say, what if I didn't have to water for an hour and a half every single day over the last 2 years? So I prioritized that. And now I'm getting other
Yeah,
things done around the house that I otherwise
there
wouldn't.
you go. Yeah, yeah.
Not to pitch Zero back into it, but I think, that idea is important because as we're running our businesses, it's very easy to wake up and do the thing in front of us. But sometimes it's important to step back and say, what can I do, today that's going to save me time in the future so I can focus on what's,
100%. Yep.
I
Yeah,
felt like
buy back your time, right? You're gonna buy back your time.
I give your time back. That's exactly it.
Yep. Industry trends you are noticing.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the tech stack that I'm talking about, right? And I think there was a lot of excitement for new tools, and there's definitely some fear for where does it end in a sense. So I don't, people say tech stack and we think of it as a vertical thing. I see it as a circle, right? It all needs to work within itself. So I think what's important for our listeners here is when you're vetting out different software, take a look at who they integrate with and who they partner with, because that's going to be a really good indicator for the quality of that product and how much they're going to be able to support you and what the future state of that product's going to be. The
Yeah, yeah,
best type of products we have are ones where you don't see the differences between them. Everything is flowing, information's flowing internally. So um, make sure not to go for the shiny thing. Make sure to go for the thing that is going to integrate well across the board.
yeah. 100%. Dream project you'd love to work on.
Ooh, good question. Um, does retiring and fly fishing for the next 10 years?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that counts.
I love backpacking, getting out of the woods and doing that. As a kid, I had a dream of creating trails. That was always my dream, going, building trails and backpacking and doing that. So if I could do anything, that's what I would probably do. Go live in the
All
woods.
right. We're going to call that trailblazing.
Trailblazing. There we go. That's exactly it.
Best piece of advice you've ever received.
Get paid to go to school. I think I said that earlier. Uh,
Yeah.
that's those are words I live by.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's the fun of owning a business and a lot of people that are doing that today. But if you are not uncomfortable and if you are not in a place where you're learning from other people every day and getting paid to do it, then you should change what you're doing.
Yeah. Amen to that. Advice you would give your younger self.
Ooh, let's say go to bed a little earlier. No, uh, no, I think be confident in the knowledge that you do have. It's funny because it's the opposite of what I just said, get paid to go to school and learn. But I think there are plenty of times where I always thought everyone around me, I was afraid to speak, afraid to say my opinion. I think it was a lot of fun joining Siro because we're talking about these engineers, I'm talking about people who are all, Ivy League schools, incredibly smart, and I was afraid to put my foot in my mouth and say the wrong thing. And this is a recent experience. And once I started getting vocal, I realized that I've got a perspective that they don't have. They
Yeah,
have
and they never will. And they never will because they haven't been in homes and getting their heads kicked in. Yeah,
correct.
yeah,
So
yeah,
not being afraid to be open about your own experiences,
yeah,
while still keeping the ears open and learning from others at the same
yeah,
time.
yeah. Yeah. All right, couple fun ones. Favorite food and favorite dessert.
Oh man, I had this thought last night, probably string cheese. Now I love good.
String cheese.
I'm a lucky guy. I'm on the road. I take clients out. I get some really nice dinners, but I tell you what, there's nothing like string cheese at 2 in the morning. It really hits the spot. And that's coming from recent experiences from about 11 hours ago.
All right, and when favorite dessert.
Favorite dessert? I love a bread pudding. I was just
Bread pudding.
Cuban bread pudding. I was just in Miami over the weekend celebrating my anniversary with my wife. We went to a little Cuban spot, and the server was there in front of us eating it. I think she did it on purpose. It's a great way to sell it. But I tell you what, that hit the spot. It's got a little bit of savory and sweet all at the same
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
So yeah, I'm all about that.
All right. If you could have dinner with anyone alive or dead, who would it be?
Uh, that's a great question. Um, I'll take the easy route, but it's the one that is meaningful to me, and it's my grandfather. He was a very powerful person, just in personality, and he was a pastor, and I'll never forget. Towards the end of his years, he sat down and said, "Spencer, not to make this religious, but what do you believe in God?" And the beautiful thing is, and I won't get into my own thoughts there, but the way he asked the question was that he actually wanted to know my thoughts. This is a man who 85 years into his life has dedicated his life to the ministries, and he was still wondering what I thought. So a lot of the concepts around what I talk about of learning and those kinds of things come from him, because he was a guy that to the end of his day was not afraid to learn and you know improve himself. So I'd love
That's
to.
good stuff. I
Remember.
like that.
Yeah.
Final question. If you had $10 million to donate, whom or who would you donate it to?
Hmm. Oh, that's a good question. I would probably, there's a couple groups that do farming around cities, so back in the solar days, I would sell solar panels on top of like these what do you call them? With the lighting and in a warehouse, growing food and
Yeah, okay, yeah, grow houses, yeah.
yeah. I love food, so I have my own garden doing things like that. And I think that industry could use a little help. And I think it'd be neat to eat good food local that's scalable.
Amen. All right, well, that's a wrap for today's episode of the BuildX podcast. Thanks to Spencer from Siro for joining us. Please subscribe, like, and share if you've enjoyed it. See you next week. And remember, Spencer, just build, baby.
Just build, baby. Thanks, Buzz.